Welcome to Heartglow CEO, where high achievers evolve into purpose-driven powerhouses. I'm Casey Rossi, your integrative leadership coach. Join us to break free from people-pleasing and burnout, exploring mindset, embodiment, and soul alignment. Discover expert insights, success stories, and actionable tips for holistic wealth on your terms. This is where transformation meets the modern, mission-driven leader. Let's go. Welcome back, beautiful soul. You're listening to the Heartglow CEO podcast, where we explore the art and science of conscious leadership, the kind that elevates not only your performance, but your presence, your relationships, and your entire inner ecosystem. As we round the corner toward the holidays, that liminal space where responsibilities meet reflection, many high achievers start to feel the friction between the lives they've built and the lives they actually want. I'm not sure what it is about this holiday space, but I know that there's a lot of reflection and oftentimes regret. And if you're here, chances are you've already achieved some type of success by every external marker. You're earning well, you're highly capable, you've checked the boxes, and yet there's a tug, a whisper for something more aligned, more soulful, more sustainable. This episode is dedicated to you, the leader who is highly skilled, deeply driven, and just beginning to realize that elevation won't come from doing more or even doing, but from expanding. So today we're diving into 3 top impediments to conscious leadership. These are patterns I've seen again and again in my private clients, brilliant humans that are doing all the things. And by every external peek in, people would be like, oh my gosh, she's crushing it. They're rocking it. I can't believe how well they're doing. But when you peel back a layer or two, they still feel unfulfilled. They still self-doubt, they're underexpressed, or they're quietly or not so quietly burning out. So let's begin. The first impediment is the high achiever identity loop. And it's so interesting, when I looked at this kind of mapped out idea that came today after I did my peace bubble, which if you haven't tapped into that, it's something that I offer as a gift every Monday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, where we really get an opportunity to understand peace, to dive into our inner landscape, and to connect with community. So a lot of times after I take the time to do that for myself as an inner practice, but then also provide it for people, because of that coherence, a lot of cool stuff bubbles up. There's creativity that gets unleashed. And so that's what happened today. Today was really no different. And when I looked at the top 3 things, they felt so real and intimate because I've experienced them. So it wasn't this like book knowledge. It was like, absolutely, this is something that I myself have stumbled along the journey. And when you're going through it, you feel like it's just you and that the problems and challenges that you're having are completely unique. And there isn't anyone else that's feeling the imposter syndrome, and there isn't anybody else that's feeling like they have to fix themselves or do more or work harder or go faster. And so I just plucked out the top 3 impediments to conscious leadership. And I have a feeling you're going to be able to nod and kind of identify yourself in some of these, if not all of them. And I'm really curious. You can always DM me and let me know which one of these resonated and how. So one of the biggest persistent blocks that I see in leaders is an identity fused with accomplishment. You know this one. I know this one. Oh my goodness. Achievement becomes the oxygen. Productivity becomes the proof. And approval, often unspoken, often internal, becomes the addiction. It's sneaky because on the outside it looks like excellence. And this is one, actually, I was steeped in for decades, especially having my first corporation at age 19. And it wasn't really until I started deeply doing personal development work and realized why I was driving so much to be on the top and always stay busy, and why I felt anxiety if there was any kind of white space in my Google Cal. And so we, in general, get praised for this type of constant production. But on the inside, it feels like a treadmill that never stops. I know for myself, I would often, if not daily, just wake up feeling behind the ball, which made no sense because it's like I literally just opened my eyes to start a new day and somehow I feel I'm behind. And there's no way I'm going to be able to get to my to-do list because I should have so much more done, even though anyone else would be looking at me thinking, what a high achiever. How does she do so much? This high achiever identity loop creates unconscious contraction. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, you don't even realize how you're crumbling in on yourself because it is your normal stance. It keeps you reactive instead of responsive. It feeds perfectionism, people-pleasing, and the ability to slow down long enough to hear your own intuition. I have one client in particular that wouldn't even know what I meant by slowing down long enough to hear their own intuition, because she is still, even though she's asking for support, she is still very married to her old way of being. And despite not wanting to burn out, and despite wanting to go to the next level and be that next version of herself, there is such a grasp on the productivity and what she knows, what has gotten her to the couple $100,000 a year mark. And maybe you can relate to this too. I know that for myself, when I was in my manufacturing company, that was just like, oh, I don't even know who I'd be if I didn't bounce to every beep, if I didn't jump how high when a client needed me. And so it is going to take some unwinding, but conscious leadership requires you to step beyond the identity of the one who delivers, the dependable one. Oh my gosh, can you relate to wearing that as a badge? That you're the one that can get shit done? The high performer? So this conscious leadership is requiring us to expand into a truer identity, the one who leads from presence and not performance. And I also want to break away because I have a love coach and I just adore her. She models the way for me. And I've been working with her for over 2 years. My partner and I have been working with her for over 2 years. And she just published her first book. It's called The Courage to Rise. Her name is Charmaine Hurd. I'm going to drop that into the show notes because I think it is just a radical piece of honesty. And she's all about relationship consciousness and relationship intelligence. But she truly is, to me, a conscious leader who is modeling the way. And one of the things that she said in our last session was she wanted to write a book and she wanted to do it in her own way that could continue to foster her core integrity. And what that meant was honestly communicating to the publisher that if you want me to be performative, then I'm not your girl, but I'm going to do it my way. And I'm going to trust that whoever is in the rooms where I'm talking about the book or picks up the book or buys it on Amazon, I trust that those are the exact right people that were meant to hear my words. And so this is really something that lands for me as well, that I wanted to tuck it into the podcast, that as we move into this next conscious leadership, this identity, this knock on our door of who we're meant to be, so much of it is coming into leading from presence and not performance. In whichever way that means to you. It could be performing in your next all hands on deck meeting. It could be performing on social media to keep up with the Joneses and start doing long form reels or videos or whatever it happens to be, whatever the trend of the moment is. This is where somatic intelligence, emotional intelligence, and self-awareness become your new power tools. When you begin to uncouple your worth from your output, your nervous system recalibrates. And I'm going to say that again. When you uncouple your worth from your output, even think about that for a minute. That's such a really rich question to even journal on. How do I uncouple my worth from my output? Let's see what bubbles up for you when you give yourself some time and space to think about that. Because what I know to be true is when you do, your nervous system slowly starts to recalibrate. That recalibration creates the space required for vision, creativity, and more refinement. Refinement of who you are, refinement of your sense of purpose, refinement of your identity. I really feel like this is an opportunity to not just continue doing what we've always done, but really look at our choices and ask ourselves, am I making this choice out of habit or am I making this choice out of intention? If you're listening in December, a month saturated with expectations, this is the perfect moment to pause and ask, who am I outside of what I accomplish? That question alone cracks open a new dimension of leadership. Isn't that exciting? I find it so exciting that in one question, in one reflection, in one choice, you can literally bust out of the old, shackled version of you and start to experience a different level of freedom and alignment. All right, the second impediment is disconnection from self. And I really want to add a part here that even though there is a disconnection from ourself, we're still hyper connected to everything else. This one shows up constantly, especially among leaders who are exceptional at supporting others. And so a lot of the leaders that I have the privilege of coaching are very steeped in caregiver energy. And so it's literally like, if you're okay, then I guess I'm okay. Whether they're working in profit or nonprofit, they tend to really be very emotionally intelligent and tuned in and very situational aware. Like there's a very high level of the situational awareness, but they're disconnected from their own self. And I don't know if you can relate to this. I mean, maybe you're connected to your inbox. Maybe you're connected to Slack and socials, your team, your deadlines, your calendar. And probably you are to get to the level that you are. But my question is, how connected are you to your inner landscape? That is often the last tab open. And sometimes we might plug in an inspirational podcast, or we may take the time to have something that's like unique on YouTube playing behind as we take our bath or jog on the treadmill. But when we're thinking about tabs open, how many times do we still have all the other mental tabs open? And can we truly say that we're present with that tab of our inner landscape? And the truth is, unconscious leadership begins where self-disconnection begins. There is an absolute parallel there. When you're operating from a mind-centric mode, strategizing, optimizing, forecasting, sometimes I think of this as like the linear masculine side of things, without the regular access to the deeper intelligence of your heart and your body, sometimes that yin or that feminine leadership, your leadership, your identity will absolutely become lopsided. And maybe you feel that now. It's effective. Absolutely. There's a lot of productivity on the strategy side. But more often than not, it is not inspired. Conscious leadership is rooted in coherence, the alignment of heart, mind, and action. And coherence isn't conceptual, it's physiological. Do you get that? I often say to my clients, we're going to work together by incorporating aspects chin down. And sometimes they look at me like, what the heck are you talking about? Because we are so used to living chin up, being completely reliant on our mind and our logical linear way of thinking. This is where my heart math work comes in, and why so many high-level clients experience almost immediate shifts. When you learn to regulate your system, to access calm clarity on demand, you stop leading from urgency and start leading from grounded authority. Take a breath here. As we enter this season, a time where many unconsciously slip into emotional dysregulation, it's crucial to reclaim your internal home base. 2 minutes of intentional breath can change the trajectory of an entire day. Imagine what 10 minutes could do. Imagine the ripple effect of grounding yourself. Could it change an entire meeting? Could it shift an entire relationship dynamic? You cannot be a conscious leader if you are a stranger to yourself. Reconnection is the gateway. Impediment number 3. This is all about legacy without fulfillment. And we often hear about modern day crises, and I do think that this is a quiet crisis among high earners. This one is the hardest to talk about. It's also the most pervasive. I work with leaders who have the title, the salary, the resume, the accolades. They have the influence, the respect, the polished presence, and still in the quiet moments, there's an ache. A sense that something essential is missing. This is the crisis of achievement without alignment. Can you relate to this? I know I can. I used to think I was just an unsatisfied person, popcorning from this to that, continually looking for the next best thing. Now, I know that restlessness came from lack of alignment. When your external success outpaces your internal evolution, fulfillment flatlines. You could keep stacking accomplishments. Oh my gosh, I used to joke that I was on a certification carousel. I would get some kind of certification, great, boom, feather in the cap, move on. What else can I enroll in? Where can I get my gold star? How can I get the badge to prove my worthiness, to prove that I was worthy enough to even leave a legacy? But all of that stopped delivering the internal return on investment. And this is often the moment someone finds me. Because conscious leadership is not about rearranging the furniture of your career. It's about redesigning the internal architecture. I absolutely love those 2 words. I'm a builder at heart. I don't know if it's because when I was little, I would just relish in watching homes be built around our house. And so we had like a residence in upstate New York. And at the time, they were doing a massive building construction. So at my young age, I would get so excited in the afternoon to race to these building sites and to sit on the unfinished stairs and just smell the wood and to envision who might live here. How might they decorate this? What might the yard look like? I don't know. Ever since I was little, I just got thrilled by the thought and idea and visions of building something from nothing. And so when I think about internal architecture now, in the context of conscious leadership, I think that whole idea of building something, of rearranging not furniture, but actual infrastructure. So we have more capacity to lead with love. We have more capacity to hold our growth and the growth of others, people that come to us. And I feel, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but I feel as the external gets increasingly challenging, that it is imperative, essential, crucial, that as leaders, we actually take the time to increase our internal architecture, that we put in intentional effort to increase and amplify our capacity to hold the space for the people that come in front of us. Those relationships that are calling for something more, that need you to have the capacity for their growth or challenge and unrest. Leaders come to me to discover their purpose, yes, but even more so, they come to feel alive again, to lead with clarity instead of obligation, to create from vision instead of duty. One of my clients recently said, "I built a life I'm proud of, but not a life I want to stay in." Oh, can you imagine all of the years, all of the education, all of the loans, and you get to this point and you're at a really high level and you have a great reputation, but you go home empty. And you just keep thinking, oh my gosh, how many decades did I push for this? And is this what I really wanted? That level of honesty is the turning point. Fulfillment is not a nice to have. And if there's any kind of voices that are in your head that are not your voice, but society or your parents or whatever, where it's like you can't have it all, you have to pick, this is your invitation and encouragement to give yourself permission to just delete, just like you would a voicemail. You know what? I don't need to listen to that again. That doesn't serve me. I'm not aligned with that. I get to choose what I want, how I want, who I want to be, who I want to be with. It's your leadership fuel source. Fulfillment is what actually gives you the energy to have passion and heat, to take aligned action, because without it, you'll keep scaling the wrong mountain. And that's exactly the example that I just shared. My client scaled a mountain, absolutely. But now stepping back after massive accomplishment, it's like, oh, was that the mountain that I wanted? Was that the mountain I wanted? And I felt that before. I felt that with my manufacturing business of 17 years, that I really put everything into it. And I was steeped in the perfectionism and the people pleasing and the productivity to the point of burnout. And at one point I was like, I actually created an engine, but it's not an engine that I want to be behind the wheel of. It feels more like a monster that I have to keep feeding. And I know that sounds dramatic and you may not be there now, but this is, if you're not, I think that's great. I'm so happy you're hearing this. When you're not at that edge where you feel like, oh my gosh, but if I don't keep doing this, then who will I be? Where you're not at a point to have an identity crisis if you're not threaded into being the CEO of what you've always been. This is your opportunity to rise above these impediments. It is your opportunity to press pause, especially now when there's so much swirls out there. Coming back and returning to presence, releasing your outdated identity, reconnecting to your own body wisdom, and aligning your outer leadership with your inner truth. That's the game plan. That is the game plan to rise above these impediments. You don't need another productivity hack. You don't need to do more. You don't need to chase the next title, the next launch, or the next validation cookie. Are you with me? Can we agree we don't need this anymore? I hope I'm hearing a lot of yeses, because what I desire, and I think like begets like, I desire deeper consciousness. And I feel that that is where next level leadership lives. If you've been feeling unfulfilled, not broken, not lost, just underactivated, consider this your invitation. A new chapter is calling. I feel it. A higher frequency of leadership, a more awakened way of being in the world. And we can't wait for somebody else. We can get inspiration from someone brave enough to go before us, but we actually can't wait. If you've been waiting, this is your opportunity to ask yourself why, and also your opportunity to say, I don't want to wait anymore. That's how I'm feeling. I don't want to wait anymore. As we move toward the holidays and prepare to close out the year, my wish for you is simple. May you soften into yourself. May you honor what's ready to be released. And may you listen deeply to the clarifying whispers of your next evolution. Because conscious leadership isn't a title, it's a practice. If this episode stirred something in you and you're ready for 2026 to be the year that you rise into your most aligned, powerful, consciously led self, stay close. Big things are coming. Until next time, my friend, breathe clarity, lead lightly, and keep glowing from the inside out. Thank you so much for listening.